Hey, Lauren. Hey, thanks for coming back. Let's wait a moment and then I'll introduce you and then we'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
As we are waiting, Laurence, I will admit that I have 2 copies of your book. The first one was looked at so much it got all mangled up that I bought another one. I liked it so much.
Thank you.
I don't know if I've ever done that except with like Robert Frank's The Americans, you know. Okay, Anna Rose, are you here? Anna Rose Monroe?
I'm here.
Awesome, awesome. All right, everyone. Let's get started. Today, we have our very special guest, which is Laurence Philomene. And am I pronouncing your name right, Laurence?
No, but that's okay.
How should I pronounce it?
It's pronounced Laurence Philomene.
Oh, really? Oh my goodness.
It's a French.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for the correction.
I don't mind, honestly.
Okay. I sound like an ugly American when I pronounce it, you know. I have admired Laurence's book for so long. And well, I think I've admired the work for a long time. I had seen the work on the internet and I had seen it in kind of random places. And the experience of seeing one of Laurence's photographs, like for the first time, it's almost like if I could taste a photograph, that's what it would be. The color was just something that spoke to me on another level. And then I think in my memory, the first image I saw was like a nude in the landscape with, you know, Laurence with red hair or orange hair. And just the use of color and the use of kind of the body and sensuality and all of those things, it was very, very powerful. And I remember like screenshotting that on my phone and trying to remember who this artist was. And then, so this book that Laurence came out with, this is this year, 2022, is that true?
Yeah.
So excited to see this book come out. And it really was something where it as a book was a whole other experience. You know, it as a book had the writing and it had a diary-like feeling to it. And to me, it did take it to another level. And so, you know, here we are in this class, analog photography. Every guest used analog gear. And I was so excited to get Laurence to join our class that I did not care that Laurence did everything in digital. I just wanted this opportunity. So before I talk too much, let's just welcome Laurence to class. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. I am gonna be sharing a presentation I made that is on my practice as a self-portrait photographer and kind of some other inspiration as well as where I started and where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna share my screen, is that okay?
Absolutely. Oh, let me give you permission here. And that should work.
Just find the button, okay. Share screen, here we go. This one, okay. Here. Send, here we go. I'm using the app Canva, by the way, if any of you are curious. It's a really great app for graphic design and like PowerPoint presentations and stuff. There's a lot of, you can do whatever you want. I don't know. I just find that it works better than PowerPoint to me. And
Yeah.
you can have it online. I also use it to make my newsletter and like graphics and stuff and pitches for clients. So yeah, highly recommend Canva is what I'm using. Okay,
Yeah.
let's get into this workshop. So a little bit about me. My name is Laurence, but my friends call me Larry, so you can call me Larry. I'm 29. I'm from Montreal, Canada. I was born here, raised here, grew up here. I'm a triple Gemini. I'm a full-time artist, and things that I like are my cat. Right now, I'm really into cooking for my cat. I started making her food from scratch this past spring. She really loves it. So that's my passion right now. And what I'm gonna do after this talk actually because she just ran out of food. Anyways, what else do I like? Yes, making my home cozy, biking, romanticizing my existence, which is what my book Puberty is about. Bright colors, trying new snacks, and generally just hanging out at home with my loved ones. So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about what this presentation today is going to be. So I'm going to look at very briefly some historical self-portraiture inspo. Truck. If you hear noise, by the way, my door is open because my cat's on the balcony. It's where she likes to spend her time. But yeah, I think all of the inspiration that I put in there is actually analog, so that'll work well for your class. And then I'm going to talk about my practice as well as some contemporary self-portraiture briefly, and then we can do Q&A at the end and talk about more practical things if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 examples of self-portraiture in history, specifically looking at self-portraiture from a marginalized perspective, which is the work that I aim to do, is always to claim narratives that have been marginalized in the past. So I use self-portraiture as a tool to do that. The first person I wanted to share with you is Claude Cahun. They were a French queer photographer, sculptor, writer, kind of like it person. And historically now they're best known for their self-portraits in which they assumed different persona and kind of played with gender and played with identity. And I really like these images because it goes to show that using photography as a space to play with identity as a queer person is an ongoing tradition that has been happening for a very long time. And it's also cool to see how contemporary some of these images look, even though they're taken like 100 years ago. Yeah, so that's a little example for you. Next, I put Gordon Parks. He's not known for his self-portraiture specifically, but I really like this self-portrait of him that we have here on the left. And he really photographed everything around him. He photographed what he was witnessing in his own community. He also did fashion photography for a living, which is what I put at the end there. And then you can also see that he was doing self-portraiture probably more as a personal practice and more of a documentation practice, which I think, yes, Rusty, you know, is even if your self-portrait isn't like high art or whatever, it still has a lot of value historically and as a photograph. So that's what I wanted to share here.
Yeah.
And next I'm sharing Francesca Woodman with you. You might know of her work already. She's very famous self-portraiture artist who made these very kind of like mysterious, a little surreal, black and white self-portraits using her body, often like kind of distorted. And yeah, like she was just really, she has a great recognition as a feminist artist. Unfortunately, she passed away quite young. So I feel like that also adds to the mystery of her photographs because she like died and just left this archive behind. But yeah, it's very different from what I do, but it is the type of images that I was looking at a lot growing up or like as a teenager getting into photography. So it does inform the work that I make, even though what I do is a lot more colorful. Okay, so which leads me into how I got into photography. So I got really into photography around 2007. I started collecting these Japanese dolls called Blythe dolls. Actually, you can see this little like pink guy here. It's like behind me on my shelf. I still have all of these toys. But yeah, I got into collecting these dolls and discovered that there was a whole community of people on Flickr who were photographing them and kind of like creating all of these different scenes with them. And I found that super inspiring. So I got into that. And through that, I also found a community of like-minded, like young teen photographers who were doing a lot of self-portraiture So I got really into self-portraiture. I was using my dad's digital camera, which I put there is a Nikon D60. It has like 10 megapixels. It's not amazing, but I still really like the images that I made with that camera. So it just goes to show that it's not really about necessarily the camera.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that a lot of those images are still very similar to the work that I do visually. Like they're very simple, they're very colorful. And yeah, I still really like that. This is the first time that I did a self-portrait series. It was called 5 a.m. and it was about me having really bad insomnia at night because I had a stalker when I was 15 and I got really scared that he would show up at night and I would stay up till 5 a.m. And so I would take these self-portraits like around my house at this hour. And I think that this work looks a lot like the images that you see in my book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I still really like them. So yeah. This is something I made when I was 15 and 16, I want to say. In my teen years, I started to do a lot of photography that explored my body. I was going through a lot of things with chronic illness. I had chronic kidney illness, among different things. So I was documenting that and using photography to do that. I dyed my hair blue and then started having a lot of fun with like using that pop of color in my photography and documenting that. And like, yeah, I was playing a lot with the body in like more abstract ways, I want to say. And I got really into Tumblr at the time. I moved from Flickr to Tumblr, and there was a lot of kind of 90s revival going on there. And I got really into pink and everything had to be pink. And I was studying commercial photography at the time at Dawson College, which is a community college here in Montreal. And my teachers told me that like I couldn't make pink work if I was doing commercial work because pink wouldn't sell and all this stuff. And I was like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, then I'm gonna share with you kind of the next big self-portrait project I did, which is called Me versus Others. It's a project where I was photographing other people dressed as me, mostly my friends and other artists. And it was kind of playing with this idea of the self as like a fluid thing and also kind of like, I don't know, it has like a bit of like an empty shell feeling to me this year versus what I do now. And kind of just more of the self as like a malleable thing and taking on different identities and playing with being more anonymous online. But I had a lot of fun with the series. It was a lot more controlled than what I do now. It was a lot of studio work and a lot of kind of creating an image from scratch versus Puberty. The work that I do now is a bit more kind of taking what's already there. But I had a lot of fun with this work. I was photographing my friends whenever I was traveling. I would just take my wig with me and just kind of, yeah, have fun with it and just create images that were pretty for the sake of it, which I think has a lot of value in it as well. And now we're on to Puberty, which is the project I've been working on since 2019. So it is an ongoing autobiographical documentation of my experience as a chronically ill, non-binary, transgender artist taking testosterone. And yeah, the first 2 years of the book are now a book. First years of the book are a book. And then, yeah, I've still continued to take pictures of myself every day and my surroundings. So there's still a lot more work to the project that I haven't quite looked at yet. And I also started doing video work after the book was done. So kind of the next chapter of this project is more video based. And I shared that at my exhibition, my solo exhibition at Photographiska New York, which is a photography museum in New York. I have an exhibition there this summer, and I premiered my video piece of Puberty.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so I think from what I'm understanding, you're a bit familiar with this work, but here are some images from the first chapter, which was the winter 2019. I was kind of just forcing myself to take pictures every day of myself and of my surroundings. And it was really more of a personal practice like I said, it wasn't really the same type of approach as what I had been doing with my work. And so I didn't see how it fit in necessarily at the time, but I started sharing it on Instagram and had a really positive response. People really, really loved the images. And so from there, it really encouraged me to keep going. And honestly, that would be my main message. If you can take away anything, is just share your work, and yeah, just like the ripple effect that sharing it can have. You never know where it's going to take you. Okay, what else do I have? Yes, so as part of the Puberty project, I also went to Iceland and did a self-portrait residency there, which was super fun. And those images are part of the book, but they're also kind of a separate chapter. So I wanted to share those. They were created a bit differently than the rest of the images in the book, because I was working with my friend Jasa, who assisted me in taking the pictures. And I was kind of telling her how I wanted to frame it and setting up the focus, setting up all the settings and everything, and then running back to the scene and posing and then going back to look at it. And it was a bit more back and forth and also more physically demanding than some of the other images. Yeah, I just did a little diagram of kind of how those pictures were taken. At home, most of the images were taken just with a tripod and a little remote and my camera. I was shooting with the Canon 5D at the time. Now I'm using a Canon EOS R, which I really like. It's a mirrorless full frame camera, and it has like a flip screen so I can see myself while I'm like in front of the camera. This camera doesn't have that, but anyways, this is beside the point because you're in a film camera class right now. But yes, for the pictures in Iceland or pictures where I'm like outside, oftentimes I'll have a friend, and just don't be afraid to ask for help whenever you're doing creative projects. I do a lot of my work myself, but I also do have help, and it helps me create some larger scenes. Next up, I have a bit of work from 2020 of Puberty. At this point, I had been documenting my life for like a year and a half, so it was part of my routine. And then the pandemic hit, and that was really interesting to document. I got a lot of attention from press at that time because there was a lot of demand for artists like documenting themselves, and I was already doing that, so that went perfectly. And I'm just glad that I was able to document that and have that as part of the book, because I feel like it helped my personal story feel a bit more universal, because I was talking about things that we all collectively went through at the same time. And what do we have here? Yeah, some more pictures of Puberty. I was sharing them. I have a newsletter that I do monthly. I've been on break for the summer, but I'll get back to it in August. And I was sharing a lot of this work as I was editing it and putting it in these grids like that. I really like seeing how the images, like how the colors look next to each other. Now I am sharing new work from the project on my Patreon. That's like the main place where I'm sharing new work. So for the book, I had all the images, and I knew I wanted to add some text. So what I did is I laid out all the images and decided what order I wanted them to all go in, which ones I wanted to keep, which ones I didn't want to keep. And that was a really, really long process. That was like maybe 6 months of just doing that full time. And then once that was all done and the whole book was laid out, I sat down and thought more about, okay, what's the story, and like, where do I want to put what pieces of text I've written? And then I also added handwritten captions for all the images, because I wanted it to be a bit more descriptive and give a sense of like what you're looking at. Okay, so something else that I do is that I like to integrate my personal practice into doing commercial work. So I've put a few examples of that here, where I'm doing self-portraiture, but it's for a client. The biggest one is Apple. That was really fun. They hired me last Pride, not this year, last year, to shoot images that were all red. Like, they assigned a color to different artists, and I got red. And I took pictures of myself and my friends, and this is a self-portrait I did for it. So that was really fun to have like budget to do something and work with the makeup artist and all of that. I also have some images that were shot for Beats by Dre, the like headphone and speaker company. And this one is more toned down. It's more just like literally just integrating a product into the kind of images I'm already doing. And then I also have some pictures for like Lacoste, their Pride season thingy, and then some bath products, like all types of different things. I think some people really like to have their commercial work super separate, and that's totally valid, but I really like just to have my work be as genuine as possible. So whenever I can, I really enjoy hiring my friends to work with, and instead of hiring models and locations and all that, just like working with what I actually have. So yeah, that was a little commercial break. This is some more recent work from the start of the year. I'm continuing to document my transition and continuing to play with colors in my house. And just continuing to have fun with self-portraiture. Then I did a little, let's take a self-portrait thing. So I'll read that out loud. Okay, so these are the steps that I go through whenever I'm creating, not just a self-portrait, but like any image really. So I'm thinking about how I'm feeling versus what I'd like to convey. Sometimes they're not necessarily the same things if I'm working on a commercial project, but you know. But in terms of personal work, I always ask myself what kind of image I'd like my future self to have or future people to have. And then how do I translate that feeling visually? Ideally with what I already have around me, like what kind of light is around, what kind of colors are around, and then how can I play with the composition and the focus. And then once I've got my inspiration, everything, I've got an idea of what I want to do, then I'll set up my tripod or ask my partner to hold the camera for me. And if I'm using a tripod, then I'll usually pre-focus and kind of set it up or look at it through the camera. And yeah, and then just take pictures. And sometimes I'll take 100 pictures. Sometimes I'll just take 2 and I'm like, that's it, I'm done. Like, that's all I have the energy for, and that's totally fine. Okay, I'm gonna share a few contemporary self-portrait photographers that I like. Here we have Zanail Muholi. They're a South African artist, non-binary artist. They've been doing self-portrait work for many, many years. They have a lot of work in museums. I saw their work at the same museum at my exhibition at this summer, which is Photographiska. And it's just stunning, and it's really inspiring to see people in other parts of the world doing similar work that I'm doing, like not necessarily visually, but the intent behind it. Next, I put Pixie Liao. She's a photographer who does a lot of self-portraiture with her partner, and she works a lot on kind of like turning the male gaze around. But I really like the compositions that she does with someone else. I think it's really beautiful. Next up is Savannah Ogburn. They're also a non-binary artist who does a lot of fun self-portraiture. Their stuff is a bit more like studio-based and kind of campy and playing with props and that kind of stuff. But I have the print of that picture above my desk, so I look at it a lot.
Oh,
And then next up is my favorite, Hobbs Ginsburg. She's a dear friend of mine. She does really colorful self-portraiture in kind of these more like imagined scenarios, and she builds everything, like builds the whole set and like furniture and all this stuff. So I really like what she does. I also have a print of hers in my bedroom. Yeah. Okay, that was my little presentation. Now feel free to ask me whatever questions you have.
that was great, Lauren.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, can I share the screen? And I wanted to bring up puberty and to kind of trigger some kind of questions here. So let's see, I'm gonna end that and bring this up. Now, everybody on Zoom, are you seeing Lawrence's website?
Yeah, I need to update my website, by the way. So
Oh, you did?
I need to. It's not that up to date.
Oh. Well, let's open this up to the class. Does anyone want to lead off the questions? Alexis, I saw you had a really good question that you put into the chat.
Yeah, I can go to it.
Oh, I can check out the chat. I just need to find it.
I think it was in our LMS. Actually, I can't even see the actual.
I know it was about their unique style.
I have it here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
This is not it. Hold on a sec.
If you guys want to just type your questions in the Zoom chat, I'll be able to see it there. And that's
Oh.
probably the easiest way.
You want to read this though?
Yeah. I'm sorry, how do you pronounce your name again? I want to say it right.
Laurence Philomene.
Laurence. My question was, what has been the most rewarding part of your journey as a young artist? And did it take you a while to find your unique style, or was it something that came naturally for you?
I think the most rewarding is just knowing that my work has impacted a lot of people positively. And yeah, just that like people are hearing my message and people are inspired to, you know, do their own art and stuff like that. That's always the best part, is just getting those types of messages, or just seeing that people are like looking at my book or looking at my exhibition and enjoying it and getting something from it. As far as my personal style, I think I've always had a really strong sense of personal style with my photography, but it's something that I'm always developing. And I would say it's something that, yeah, I try to not get too stuck in like an idea of like, oh, this is what my pictures should look like, and more just like what looks beautiful to me right now. And over the years, I've shifted from doing studio work to doing, you know, more on location work. Now I'm kind of doing a mix of both. And I would say the main thing that's changed is just that I up the saturation slider a little bit more every year, but that's the
So
main.
you can go with the flow, really.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you.
No, that was a very good question. A question I have in looking at the book here is, it really works as a book. Like a lot of times you like a photographer's work and you buy the book, and then the book is just a collection of images. But I really thought that this book, it becomes a whole other thing. And the layout and the choice of images that you put next to each other, and how you kind of display them, and then the handwriting, it all becomes this other kind of thing. Is that anything you can reflect on? Like, did you have a vision for the book long before it actually was a book?
Yeah, it took a long time for the book to happen. Like, I knew I wanted it to be a book about like 3 to 6 months into starting the project, like in 2019, and then finding the right publisher. And then there was a lot of back and forth on like what we wanted the format to be. I had a really good sense. Like, I always knew I wanted it to be a soft cover, and I wanted it to be about that size. Yes, Vashti, sorry, my cat really wants food right now. And yeah, I knew like what feeling I wanted to evoke when looking at the book. And I knew I wanted it to be something that you could like pick up and read over several nights if you want. And like, I wanted it to be, like a story throughout.
Yeah.
I was really inspired by this book called Generation Wealth by Lauren Greenfield. It's very different from my work. Very, very different. But it's like an ethnography of wealth disparities and kind of capitalism. But in the book, she also interviews everyone that she photographs. It's a huge archive of like 30 years worth of work. And she puts all these interviews with the images. And I really loved being able to read that book as I looked at the images.
Right.
I don't have as many words to say as she does. So I did like a smaller version of that. But yeah, I really like that idea of kind of explaining what the image was and what the context behind the image was. But I went a bit more like philosophical with mine.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, right. Less reporting, more introspective or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. I made it from the perspective of like, if I, assuming someone's curious about my journey, like, what would I be curious about? And like, what are the things I would want to see or know? Yeah, that's always how I make my work, is just kind of what I would like to see in the world, and also what's my own story to tell. There's a question in the chat. So someone
Yes.
asked,
Anna Rose.
yes,
Yeah.
how do you design your color palette and how do you go about choosing a color? I would say the main thing that drives my color decisions is my intuition, just whatever feels good with whatever emotion I'm trying to express at that time. But oftentimes I'll just work with the colors that are already there. So like my hair is orange, so obviously that's going to be in a lot of the images. But if I'm somewhere and I notice like, oh, this wall is blue, this thing is pink, I'll take advantage of that and yeah, just photograph like what I see and I think is enjoyable to my eyes. But I think color, there's a lot of historical meaning to it. There's a lot of specific like socio-political meaning to it, depending on where you are in time space. And then there's also like energetic meanings to them that exist in different cultures. So I do like I'm interested in knowing all of those things and learning about color, but when it comes to making my images, I really just go with my intuition.
When you are creating, do you sometimes remove certain objects or put different objects in, specifically in the frame for the color? I mean, you just have such a mastery of color. There's only one other photographer that, in my opinion, that has this kind of mastery level of color, which Eric Madigan Heck, if you're familiar with him and his work, and you are like, your work is phenomenal. It's a very different style. And your mastery of color is just so striking. But then, of course, you're bringing in all the other composition elements and narrative and story. So it's excellent. So my question is, are you sometimes taking things out or putting things in? Like, for example, the one you have where you have like the things on the bed, there's very intentional color. It seems like it's like the image that's to the left of the screen right now. It's kind of partial. No, other way, Timothy. Go the other way.
The yellow one.
Yeah, right there.
I mean, sometimes like if there's something that I really don't like in the frame, like just like a big object that's distracting or trash or whatever, I'll remove it. But I still like, even in that image, you see there's still a bit of trash. So it's really more just about noticing moments that the color is pretty and then just capturing that. But also like I surround myself with objects that are colorful and things like that. But I think colors everywhere really. So it's
Yeah.
you can find
Beautiful
it.
work. Absolutely beautiful work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Garen, you have a question here or a statement, not a question?
Oh, someone asked, how do I get a book signed? I'm still, well, if you're around New York, I left a few at the museum there. I'm still sending out, I did a Kickstarter to raise funds for my book, so it was very expensive to print. And I'm still sending out those signed books from my Kickstarter from the winter. So at the moment I'm at capacity, but if you go to New York, they might have one there left for you.
I was in New York this morning. I should have known.
Oh no.
But in regards to the statement, it's not really a question, but I was just having a conversation yesterday with another amazing photographer, and we were talking about how everything that we did on Tumblr has just like evolved into the work that we do as like adults, almost like very clearly. And then I was noting how I felt like that was really enabling, because like even the way you have your PowerPoint set up, or like the rebellious nature of using like handwritten things on, whereas like I think a lot of my mind wants to go to the structure of like how things are supposed to look based on things I've seen in the past. So a lot of this seems like unprecedented. And I thought it like also reflected the notion of like how rebellious being non-binary is. And it's just like so inspiring to me. Like I want to go do self-portraiture ASAP.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. I always ask myself, like, what do I want to create that doesn't already exist? And that drives a lot of what I do. So yeah, I try to do something that hasn't quite been done before.
Wow.
Okay, someone asked, do you have an advice on how to represent all your varying efforts, such as commercial and the personal? Yeah, I struggled with that for a long time where I was like, should it be different websites? Should it be different blah, blah, blah? Like what kind of commercial work do I want to show? Ultimately, the best advice that I've gotten is just to share the work that you want to make more of. Not so much like just because I used to be like, I need to show that I'm working, like everything that I'm doing. And I still do that to a certain extent, just because that's in my nature, but just try to tone it down to like these projects I really enjoy and I want to make more of. And even if it's just personal work, like that will still get you commercial work because photo editors will notice that you're putting out, a specific certain vibe, and they'll be like, okay, I'm looking for that vibe for this assignment, so I'm gonna look to this photographer. Basically, what I'm trying to say is just make the work that excites you, and then you'll be sought out for that kind of work, both
Awesome, thank
commercially
you.
and artistically.
That was my question. And then kind of adding on to that, you're saying that people will actually see your work. So how do you best put it out there? Because like I have Instagram or stuff like that. Are there any other places to try and get your work seen?
I think for me, it's really just like an accumulation of doing it over the years. So just be patient with it. And you never know, like sometimes you might think like, oh, there's only 3 people that are seeing those things, but maybe in 5 years, one of those 3 people will be the photo editor of the New Yorker, which has literally happened to me before. It's like, you never know
True.
where one person is going to take you, and just talk about your work, even if you're just out on, whatever, getting your hair done or something. That's like when I talk about my work the most. And yeah, just keep going. I have a newsletter and I have a Patreon. So those are 2 other places where I'm sharing my work. But I still think that Instagram, although there's a lot of problems with the app and people are kind of hating on it, it's still the best place for photographers at the moment. So that's okay, I have 2 more questions. Someone said, do you work with galleries? And if you do, which galleries do you work with? Yes, I do have a gallery here in Montreal. It just worked out really well for me. I had a commercial agent in the past, but the agency was kind of shifty. And I just think a lot of practices in the marketing and commercial work world can be a little predatory towards photographers and artists in general. So I was looking to kind of not fully get out of commercial work. I still do commercial work, but I don't want it to be like the main thing driving me. So I was looking into galleries, and these people reached out because the girlfriend of the artist owner was the receptionist at the printer that I used for my work, and she saw my work and was sharing it with her boyfriend, who was this gallery representation. Once again, you never know where things are going to lead you. And so that's how I got gallery representation. And I really love how it works. They have, I think, like 30 different prints of my work right now, and they sell it on their website. And I'm still allowed to like share my work at museums, and I also have like smaller prints for sale on my own website, but they handle all of my large framed prints, and that's been really, really nice. With galleries in general, I would say just feel it out. Like if you don't feel like it's the right match, you'll know, and vice versa. For me, this one, like it's not a super well-known gallery, but in my town, like it's one of my favorite galleries. They really focus on colorful work and like really atypical work. And I'm the first photographer that they're representing. So that's also interesting, working in a gallery with a lot of different types of artwork. Yeah, I would say in general, both with commercial agents and galleries, most of the time it's like they'll come to you when they're interested in your work. But if there's something that you see where you're like, oh my God, I love what this agency or gallery is doing, like it doesn't hurt to reach out and just send them your work. Someone said, can you speak more about your Patreon? Yes. So I have a Patreon. I've been on there for about 1.5 years. I really enjoy it, honestly, more than I thought I would. I have 3 different tiers. You can have just like online stuff where you get all my updates and my photos. I am also sharing my video work on there, like exclusively. I haven't shared it online anywhere else. And I also follow everyone back on my Patreon and add you to my close friends list. And I actually really enjoy like catching up with everyone's like I think they're all my friends now. I'm like, you don't get a choice, you're just my friend now. And then I also have 2 mail tiers where you can get mail from me either once a month or once every 2 months, where I send like exclusive merch that I make for it. I'll make like waterproof stickers and magnets and like all types of prints. And I also send a small signed print every month. It's great value, 10 out of 10 if you want to follow my work. I highly recommend. It's just my name, Laurence Philomene, on Patreon.
Wow. We have some students in class here. Let's see, Tiffany, did you have any in particular questions?
Yeah, I have one. I don't know if it was covered. I came in late, sorry. But when you build your concepts, how long do you focus on it before you actually put it into play for your photographs?
It really depends. When it's for a client, it's a bit more structured, like the stuff I did for Apple, where like I'll have to pitch an idea and then they'll say if they like it, and then I have to like build more on it, and they really like to know exactly what they're getting into. So when I'm doing that kind of work, it'll be a lot more planned, where like I know exactly, all the elements I'm gonna buy and what it's gonna look like and all this stuff. For my personal work, it's a lot more candid. So I just kind of carry my camera, like I have it right next to me at all times. And if I see something pretty, I just photograph it. And yeah, or if I'm doing self-portraits of myself, typically it's more like I happen to be at my studio and there's pretty light and I'm just gonna turn on the tripod and kind of document for the sake of doing it. But yeah, for my personal work, it's not super planned. But what I do is I'll let my images sit for a really long time. Like I really like to take my pictures and then put them on my hard drive and like not look at them for at least 6 months. And then I get a really good sense of like what the context that it was created in meant, and not just my personal context, but like everyone's. And I get a bit more detached from them. I don't know. I've always been like that, where I really like to let my images sit for a while.
I actually do that too. I have a lot of images. I have a hard drive full of images that I've for like it's actually been almost a year.
Yeah, I mean, I have work from like literally 10 years ago I haven't looked at yet, but you don't have to be that extreme. I just
Yeah, those might be too fun.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Heaven, did you have any questions?
I would want to ask, because I don't think, what should I say? Like, I'm sure you definitely overcome some difficult during how to express your feeling and express yourself. And I was just wondering, when you like, have some problem about when you're taking photo, or when you have depressing, how do you overcome the problem, eventually, and not giving up and keep doing it? What was the things makes you feel powerful that keep doing that? Because there are some times that you were feeling that, oh, no one understand you, no one understand what you're trying to say. So how did you deal with this a mental issue and then just keep doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main way personally that I've done it is to really not put pressure on myself with how good a picture has to be. I just make sure that I take a picture of something every day, even if it's just the sky, or even if it's just like my messy table or something like that. And like, also, just to be honest, there are days where like I just wait until midnight because I'm not inspired and I don't want to take a picture. A lot of the pictures in the book are like at night because I was doing that. Like I was procrastinating until right before bedtime to take my picture for the day. I don't know if that really answers your question, but yeah, I think right now I'm just working on accepting that like it's okay. Not every day is gonna be happy, or like not every moment is. But I think taking pictures of those really nice moments, it does help to like overcome the more stressful times.
I do have another question. Like, since when you think you are an artist? You think you can finally say yourself, it's an artist?
Mhm.
Like, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think probably, I feel like I've always use that term because it's what I've done full time since I was like 15. But I feel like since I finished school and I could say like I'm a full-time artist and I make a living off of it, in that sense, that's when I would say I could have used that word for myself. But I think it's just been a big part of my personality for so long. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very good. B, did you have a question? I know we had talked about this word.
Yeah, I think I'm more interested about the colors, if you could tell more, because you talk like it's something so easy for you. And for us, when we look, it's so striking, the way you choose, the way you put the colors together, the way you put green with the red, and it becomes like an explosion of do you get your inspiration also from artists, from painters? What is like, where did this such a good taste to put colors together came from, like so beautifully?
I think just like everything I do, it's just like about the repetition of working at it for a very long time. Like I've been working at my photography for 15 years now and just training my eye to look at color every day. But it's just something that brings me joy. So it doesn't feel like work to me. It's just something that I do like for fun. Is like look at colors and how they work together. But I think also when I'm editing my pictures, it's fun because I'll boost the saturation or I'll play with the curves or whatever. And oftentimes it'll reveal colors that I didn't realize were like that present in that image. And then I can boost the saturation with those colors and yeah, just kind of have fun with it. Just be playful with it. And like people are really afraid of color, but like color's everywhere. So there's no escaping it really, unless you're really shooting black and white, but then you're still dealing with tone and stuff. So just have fun with it and see what happens. How much time do you spend alone to think about your photos? Oh my God, so much time alone. A lot. I think that's why like I'm so slow, because I need a lot of alone time, and just I like to just go outside on my balcony and just like sing and do nothing. And I do a lot of that. So yes, the answer is a lot. Yes, actually, my cat is like so just like she's just waiting for her food right there.
We recognize that cat from the book. Such a player in that. Laurence, you were so generous with your time, and this was such a great presentation. We have a couple more questions here, and then we can let you go. Susan, would you like to
I don't
speak?
really have a question because all my questions were answered by your talk and also by the other questions in class. But I do want to say I'm a big, huge fan, and I admire your work immensely. We talked about it in class last week, and again before that. I follow you on Instagram, and I'm gonna join your Patreon. But I just wanted to thank you for giving us a glimpse into your world, and you do it so well with your use of color, composition, use of light is sublime. There's a tenderness to all your images that I think, well, I find a tenderness in all your images, and Timothy asked last week, I was so excited to hear that you were going to speak, and he was like, well, what is it about his work that draws you in? I said, it's just luscious. It's luscious. There's a lusciousness to it that just, well, I don't know, blows my mind, I guess. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you very much before you go. And you are an inspiration to I think, everybody in our class. And thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I think it's great that your equipment list is 3 things and a friend.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times.
I mean, I got like an SD card in there and things like that.
Anyway, thank you.
That was a wonderful way to end, I think, the lecture. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Laurence, that was wonderful. Thank you for being so generous with your time and with your process and everything there. And I only I think everything Susan said is accurate. We're fascinated by the work, and hearing you talk just kind of helped us put the pieces together for sure. Thanks for everything, and enjoy the rest of your day, Laurence. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna go make food for my cat.
Yep.
Have
We
a
will
good
let
afternoon, everyone.
you too. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.